If you look at it, some people from a practical angle who haven't come, they may think, oh, this is really disconnected from the rest of the festival because you have to walk a little bit more, although we're really, really close to the center of the festival in Lido, and then you have to take a boat, but the boat ride is only 30 seconds. So to some people it may feel like it's outside, and it is a little bit disconnected, but I think that's a strength because it gives a very particular sense of being whole. That the concept of a VR island, I think, is quite strong and interesting. And yes, it takes a little more time, but what I see is happening this year, the same as last year, is that people come here and they want to stay here because we're so lucky we have such a beautiful space. It's peaceful, it's well designed, there's a beautiful garden, there are no cars, and there's a sense of being a little bit protected from the hysteria of the festival. So I think it works in our favor. The other good thing about the island, like you just said, I mean, it's a landmark, an unknown landmark of Venice because no one was allowed to come to the island before. It has a very strong and powerful history. It's a history of death a long time ago, and we're coming here with the latest evolution of media and how to tell stories. So this is very much about the future, about the present and the future. And I personally love that combination, that the future is being staged, in the ashes of the past. Nothing could make me happier than what you are saying, because this is definitely part of our approach, part of the concept of how we lay to the space and how we relate to the filmmakers by stressing to them that this is not only an opportunity to show the work, but to meet people and to create a network. We're lucky in a way that VR is such a young art form that we don't have any VR stars yet. There are more and more film stars that are involved in VR content, which is great, but there is a spirit of a family, of a community, and people are eager to share about something that is so new, that is not codified yet, that it doesn't have its set rules. So that spirit of open-mindedness and sharing is one of the beautiful sides of VR today. So I'm really glad that the VR island allows this to be made. It's our way of organizing it because this is the way we feel reflects the best of what seems to be the different genres in VR. We're not saying that it's the only one and that it's the rule. It's the one that seems to work for us. Since we have an international jury, we're giving awards, and there are no other festivals that do that on an official level. And we are a section of the film festival. We need to have a clear system. So this is the system we found. What's interesting is that when we had to define what piece was going to be on the linear category and which ones would be on the interactive, we found that we had to push our thinking further because we have in the linear section, the category, we have several pieces with some interactivity, but we considered that interactivity was not enough to qualify the piece as interactive, and we decided a piece is qualified as interactive in what we do if the interaction that the user, the spectator, has with the story can actually impact the flow of the story itself. Well, if it's a minor interactivity with side effects, but nothing that impacts the flow, we consider it linear. So this is a very subjective way, and of course there are some pieces like Home After War, for instance, which are where we could have been on either side. We decided linear, so it's not a clear mark between the two. I think that the clear difference between viewing a story in a VR headset or in 360 degrees in VR with watching a story in a cinema, for instance, is very much the experiential dimension. And for me, VR is an experiential art form, a little bit like immersive theater could be. So that notion of feeling, being present, being immersed is experiential by nature. So there is a little bit, you're right, of a contradiction in the fact that we're using the word experience in two different ways. We're using it in a generic way about all content, and we use it in a more restricted way for those pieces that have significant interactivity. Well, two things. One, the fact that we have, I think, like close to 40% of women in the selection is not a quota that we gave ourselves from the start with Liz, my co-programmer, and saying we need to make sure we have women, and then we separated the men on one side, the women, and then we counted. It didn't work like that. We looked at the work regardless of the gender, and then once we had, we looked at maybe 250 pieces to select 30. So we had short lists, and those short lists went down. At the very last moment, when we had maybe 40 pieces, then we that we really liked. Ideally, we would have liked to take the 40. Then at that point, because it was so difficult to choose between the pieces, at that point, yes, we looked at women and men. It only happened at the very, very last minute, and when the work itself was considered all equal. And to answer your question directly, yes, I think it's easier for one reason. It's that the art form is so young, and the technology is so young, and it's so much in development. Still very young, so there's no establishment in VR. There are no rules. Even the words are not set yet. We were just talking about experience. Is that the right word? Everyone seems to be talking about immersive more than experience. Anyway, it is young. It is also a younger generation. It is a generation in VR that has not been brought up with the same prejudices or behaviors, gender-wise. So there's a fresher and more authentic approach to this. There's another reason why I think it's easier, is that the money is not part of the equation yet. You can't get rich by doing VR today. It's too early. There's no market. VR is not sold. VR is not distributed. So there are no parameters that make the competition really tough and people wanting to trample on each other. So I think for these reasons it's a much more equal ecosystem right now. It's only the second edition, and last year we had only one piece that we produced, so this is still very, very fresh. Given the little time they have to make them, given the little money that they have to make them, I see them more as full scale exercises, and we show them as part of the college. If they were not part of the college, probably most of them wouldn't be selected in this selection. So this is why we have a specific section, which is the college. But we find it very, interesting to show the result of a development workshop like this, because the purpose is to not only train new talent, and because aside from the pieces we're showing here, there are others that we didn't produce but that we developed as well, which are in the Venice production bridge. These pieces are the result of experimenting in different ways, and also codifying what it takes to make a piece. It helps us understand what people need, where they come from. Most of the people who come to the college are not filmmakers first. Some of them come from games, some others come from writing books, visual arts, even can be like publicity, can be from music even, some from film but few. So the codes are completely different, and the previous experience is maybe further away from VR and from storytelling than for those who are making the best pieces. but the relevance of producing work that way, as I said, as a research, as an exploration, is wonderful. I mean, it really teaches us a lot, and I think it teaches a lot to the participants. So it's not on the same level, but the value is in the process more than on the product.